Everyone, welcome to our February 20th board meeting. Mr. Clerk, lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Supervisor Wilhelm.
Here.
Councilman McCarthy.
Here.
Councilwoman Noack.
Here.
Councilman Lohman. Here.
Okay, we will begin this afternoon sitting as Board of Water Commissioners, Deputy Clerk.
The minutes from February 4th, a part-time appointment of Rosemary Shadow to the town clerk, and a budget transfer.
Councilman Lohman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes.
Supervisor Wilhelm.
Yes. We will reconvene as Town Board and move to the agenda.
Building Department report from January 2025. St. James Smithtown Little League opening day parade October 5th from 9 to 10. With a rain date of April 6th. Wisconsin Athletic Association opening day parade April 12th from 9 to 11:30. And the Smithtown Chamber of Commerce Smithtown Festival Day, June 1st, from 9 to 5:30. There are 6 public hearings today. The first public hearing is for the amendments to Town Code Chapter 101, Department of Park, Buildings and Grounds. And Rachel Lindberger, Assistant Town Attorney, is here to describe the amendments.
Good afternoon, Supervisor and members of the Town Board. The purpose of this hearing today is to consider an amendment to Section 101-6 to include overnight parking in town parks for fishermen with permits. Unless there are any questions, that concludes this public hearing.
Any questions by the board?
Thank you.
No. Anyone wish to be heard in this public hearing in the audience? There being none, I will move to close.
Second.
Supervisor Wilhelm.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack.
Yes.
Councilman Lohman.
Yes. Thank you, Counselor.
The next 3 public hearings, the first one on Chapter 112 and 2 on Chapter 322, will be discussed by Janice Hanson, Assistant Town Attorney.
Good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the board. The purpose of the first of my hearings is to consider amendments to Section 11211 regarding building construction fees. If adopted, a number of the fees would be changing. Residential buildings, our new construction base fee would be $305 and 55 cents per square foot of proposed work. Permits for additions, alterations, fire repair, garage conversions, base fee of $305 and 45 cents per square foot of proposed work. Residential antennas, satellite dishes, fireplaces, stove sheds, air conditioning units, and heating units, $112 per unit. Plumbing permits, $55 for the first 2 and $28 for each additional fixture. Gas pressure tests, $112 per meter per test. Retaining walls, base fee of $330 and $140 per 4 square feet of wall area. Residential rooftop mounted solar panels would be a fee of $165. For commercial buildings, permits for new construction and additions, base fee would be $550 and 62 cents per square foot of gross floor area. Interior alterations and fire repair, base fee of $380 and 62 cents per square foot of proposed work. Heating and air conditioning units, $550 per unit. Plumbing permits, $275 for the first 2 and $34 for each additional fixture. Gas pressure test, $275 per meter per test. And installation of elevators, $110 per elevator. Facade renovations, base fee of $275 and 50 cents per square foot. Tents, $275. Rooftop mounted solar panels, $14 per panel, not to exceed $2,225. Commercial antennas and satellite dishes would be $1,125 per unit. Then with regard to general permits or fees, installation of fences, $170. Installation of pools other than gunite or concrete, $275. Gunite or concrete pools, $325. Installation of ground-mounted solar panels, $320 up to 20, then $320 plus $250 per panel in excess of 20 panels, not to exceed 27,000. Installation or removal of storage tanks would be $325 per tank. Demolition of residential dwelling, $500 per dwelling. Demo of accessory structures, $75 per structure. Use permit fee, $325. Demolition of commercial structure per structure up to 9,999 square feet would be $500. Up to 10,000 up to 19,999 square feet, $1,000, 20,000 up to 49,999 square feet, $3,000, and 50,000 square feet and above, $5,000. And then site work only would be $850, and temporary certificates of occupancy will be valid for a period of 12 months. So unless there are any questions, that concludes this public hearing.
Questions by the board?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience wish to be heard on this public hearing? There being none, move to close.
Second.
Supervisor Wareheim.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack.
Yes.
Councilman Lohman.
Yes.
With regard to my second public hearing, this is to consider amendments to section 322-71.1 of the Town Code regarding sign permit fees. And the proposed amendment would increase the permit fee to $4 per square foot and not less than $75. Unless there are any questions, that concludes that hearing.
Questions by the board?
No.
Anyone in the audience wish to be heard on this public hearing? There being none, move to close.
Second.
Supervisor Wareheim.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack.
Yes.
Councilman Lohman.
Yes.
Okay, and then with regard to the proposed amendments to section 322-81 and 322-88 of the Town Code. First, we have 322-81 regarding Board of Appeals fees. The proposed amendment would change the following fees. For one-family residential uses, use variance would be $3,000, area variance $250, interpretation $1,500, special exception $1,300, certificate of existing use $1,650, request for rehearing after the decision is rendered would be $300, and extension of approval $250. Fees for uses other than one-family residential uses, use variance would be $3,000, interpretation $3,000, CEU $3,000, and request for rehearing $300. Then applications, the addendum would be $350 per acre. Exemption applications $800 plus 50 cents for any additional floor area, and the additional charge of $100 for any type of living quarter would be per unit. Unless there are any questions, that concludes that.
Questions by the board?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience wish to be heard on this public hearing? There being none, move to close.
Second.
Supervisor Wareheim.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack.
Yes.
Councilman Lohman.
Yes.
The next two public hearings for Chapter 242 and Chapter 322 will be presented by Simone Freeman, Assistant Town Attorney.
Good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the Town Board. The purpose of this public hearing is for the Board to consider the repeal and replacement of Chapter 242 of the Town Code entitled Telecommunications Facilities and Structures with Chapter 242 entitled Wireless Telecommunications Facilities. Initially, the town adopted Chapter 242 close to 25 years ago when the federal government adopted the Telecommunications Act of 1996. Since then, there's been a significant amount of advancement made with respect to technology, infrastructure, and deployment methods, resulting in updates to the federal standards for the location of wireless telecommunication facilities. Accordingly, the town wishes to update its standards for the location of wireless telecommunication facilities to be consistent with applicable federal and state laws, statutes, rules, and regulations. So the proposed updates to the code would include definitions consistent with those set forth in the Federal Code of Regulations relating to wireless telecommunications facilities, wireless facility modifications, and reasonable periods of time to act on siting applications. It establishes 3 wireless telecommunication facility application tiers and provides criteria for review of applications, including location, siting, design, and safety standards by tier and type of facility. It clarifies the approvals required by tier and sets forth the process and timeframes for which review of each application by type and tier to be consistent with the FCC shot clock. Requires a license agreement with the town to co-locate on all municipal facilities, municipal property, and public rights of way, and sets forth application requirements for license applications and also the process for review. Under the current code, the town board was authorized to grant special exception use permits for these facilities. However, since certain applications may require variance relief, the updates to the proposed code would streamline the process by granting the Board of Zoning and Appeals authority to review and approve special exception use permits where required, together with any necessary variance relief. The town board would still retain Board of Site Plan Review as necessary under this code, and it would also establish post-approval monitoring requirements for continuing compliance and a process for removal of facilities, revocation or suspension of permits or other approvals for violations and or failing to comply with certain conditions to approval. Unless there are any questions from the board, this concludes my presentation with respect to Chapter 242.
Questions by the board?
No.
Anyone in the audience wish to be heard on this public hearing? There being none, move to close.
Second.
Supervisor Wareheim.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack.
Yes.
Councilman Lohman.
Yes.
With respect to Chapter 322, the purpose of this public hearing is to consider amendments to Chapter 322 of the Town Code entitled Zoning as it relates to wireless telecommunication facilities. So these proposed amendments include and define wireless telecommunication facilities, clarifies the approvals required by tier, and sets forth the process for review and approval of each application by type. It also grants the Board of Zoning and Appeals authority to review and approve special exception use permits for all applications where required, and is consistent with the procedures and requirements that would be set forth in Chapter 242. Grants the town board authority to consider and approve license agreements for the co-location of any facilities on municipal property or municipal facilities, public rights-of-way, consistent with the procedures and requirements set forth in Chapter 242. Unless there's any questions by the board, this concludes our presentation.
Questions by the board?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience wish to be heard on this public hearing? There being none, move to close.
Second.
Supervisor Wareheim.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack.
Yes.
Councilman Lohman.
Yes.
On the consent agenda, we have the minutes from January 23rd and February 4th. On the controller, numbers 1 to 8, and resolutions 1 to 3.
Councilman Lohman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack. Councilman McCarthy.
Yes.
Supervisor Wareheim.
Yes. Did she miss these? Excuse me, did you get to Resolution C, the advertisement for public hearings?
I did not.
Okay, so we're yes on these. Let's go back to those.
Okay. Authorize the town clerk to advertise for 2 public hearings to be held at Smithtown Town Hall. The first on Tuesday, March 4th at 2 p.m. to consider amendments to Chapter 248 of the Town Code entitled Subdivision of Land. And the second on Thursday, March 20th at 2 p.m. to consider amendments to Chapter 322 of the Code entitled Zoning as it relates to Article 12, Board of Appeals.
Councilman Lohman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes.
Supervisor Wareheim.
Yes.
The town board to issue a secret negative declaration determination of non-significance in the matter of change of zone petition 2024-03 by Spark Car Wash for the reasons as stated in a memorandum from the Environmental Protection Director.
Councilman Lohman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes.
Supervisor Wareheim.
Yes.
Authorize the town clerk to advertise for bids 2522 LED street lighting materials, 21 construction of a barbecue pavilion at Hoyt Farm, and 24 proposed amendments to Short Beach Pavilion.
Councilman Lohman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes.
Supervisor Wareheim.
Yes.
Award the following bids and authorize the purchase of associated goods or services. Bid 2494, traffic sign materials to U.S. Standard Sign and National Highway Products Incorporated. 2496, outboard motors and related parts and services to American Marine, Great Bay Marine, and Freeport Marine. 2492, automotive lubricants to Grade A Petroleum Corp., Fleet Pride, Lubinet, Reladine Northeast LLC. And the last is 258, polyethylene bags to Forteon Packaging.
Councilman Lohman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes.
Supervisor Wareheim.
Yes.
Town Board to approve the following: an extension of an RFP 2355 for commercial canoe livery service at Paul T. Given Park with Nisqually River Canoe and Kayak Rentals. Extension of bid 22-110 for swimming pool complex services with Aquatic Dynamics. Extension of bid 23-8, swimming pool chemicals with Tortellini Autochem. Extension of agreement with LK McLean Associates for the continuation of reporting services at the Montclair Avenue landfill for the 2025 term. Extension of agreement with Islip Resource Recovery Agency for the processing of the town's commingled recyclable material for a one-year term from January 1st through December 31st, 2025. PIN 2523, renewal of multi-factor authentication licenses for the town's computer network. Authorize the design of plans for the Department of Environment and Waterway and to prepare all requisite permit application materials, and authorize the supervisor to sign all such materials as may be required in order to obtain a New York State DEC permit for the implementation of various building improvements at Given Park, including 490 Jericho Turnpike. And the last is the appointment of Gerard LaRocco to the Town of Smithtown Opiate and Addiction Task Force to serve as the liaison to the law enforcement agencies.
Councilman Lohman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Wareheim?
Yes.
The town board to issue a written consistency determination pursuant to Chapter 151 of the Town Code that the Coastal Consistency Review 2024-11 for 52 Brookfield Road and Review 2024-13 for Kenneth Farrell is consistent with the local water revitalization plan, both with conditions as stated in a memorandum from the planning director.
Councilman Lohman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Wareheim?
Yes.
Town board to approve zone change petition 2024-03 for Spark Car Wash to change a portion of the property from neighborhood business to wholesale and service industry, and repeal covenants filed on the property and recorded on 12/2/16, subject to the conditions recommended in the planning director's memorandum.
Councilman Lohman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Wareheim?
Yes.
Authorize the acceptance of the following. Accept a check donation in the amount of $325 from Harbor Country Day School to the animal shelter. The town board to accept as complete for the purposes of SEQA. Review the draft environmental impact statement dated February 2025, prepared by the firm of VHB Engineering for Country Point Estates at Kings Park, and to authorize the town clerk to advertise same with a public comment period to close at 5 p.m. on Friday, April 4th.
Councilman Lohman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Wareheim?
Yes.
Authorize the supervisor to execute the following resolutions on a form approved by the town attorney. A cooperative purchasing agreement with Interlocal Purchasing System. Agreements for the donation and installation of memorial benches to be placed at various town parks. 2025 Youth Bureau State Aid Agreement with Suffolk County. An agreement with Francis Farizzo to provide Zumba Gold and Strength Training classes to the Senior Citizen Department. Authorize the Department of Environment and Waterways to prepare and file an application with the Suffolk County Soil Conservation Municipal Assistance Grant. Authorize the Department of Environment and Waterways to prepare and file an application with New York State Department of Environmental Conservation for state assistance from the Household Hazard Waste State Assistance Program for the period January through December 2025, and authorize the supervisor to sign any contracts needed for both resolutions 5 and 6. Town board to accept proposal from H2M Architects and Engineers for professional services in connection with the preparation and submittal of a New York State Department of Environmental Conservation solid waste permit for the municipal service facility. And the last is the 2025 Youth Bureau Sports Grant with Suffolk County.
Councilman Lohman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Wareheim?
Yes.
Approve settlement with Long Island Lighting Company in the amount of $21,134.81 per the recommendation of the town attorney.
Councilman Lohman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Wareheim?
Yes.
And personnel resolutions A through E as described on the agenda.
Councilman Lohman?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Supervisor Wareheim?
Yes. That concludes the agenda. We'll move to the public portion. Do we have any speakers? We do not. Then I will move to close.
Second.
Supervisor Wareheim?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Noack?
Yes.
Councilman Lohman?
Yes.
Thank you all for attending this afternoon.